So, as Connie mentioned, you started the company as Into the Gloss, which is your blog, and it was in your apartment, literally a very traditional entrepreneurial story. What was your inspiration to do that, and how did you decide to transition that into building a brand for your business?
So Into the Gloss launched in 2010 as a beauty blog. As you said, it was out of my apartment with my cat and myself learning WordPress. And the impetus to launch a beauty blog like Into the Gloss back then was to create a very elevated platform that celebrated beauty as an element of personal style from the perspective of real women. So products really as part of routines and in context, as opposed to just product reviews. And what ended up happening is Into the Gloss now has about 1.5 million unique visitors a month from around the world. It's 50% US, 50% international. And has really cultivated this highly active community of women who spend a lot of time commenting and discussing their routines with each other. And around 2013, after this blog had been around for 3 years, and I interviewed over the course of those 3 years hundreds of the world's most stylish and kind of influential female leaders. So everyone from Ariana Huffington to J. Crew's Jenna Lyons, even to people like Selena Gomez and Kim Kardashian. All with me, them, sitting on their bathroom floors, flung open the cabinets, squeezing tubes of creams and discussing, the pros and cons and the pain points and the big wide world of beauty. I ended up realizing that there was this big disconnect between many of the leading global beauty conglomerates and the brands that they own. This disconnect between those brands, many of which were founded decades ago on values and through distribution channels that are decades old, and the customer herself. And so she feels maybe an affinity for a product, but feels somewhat disconnected from the brands in terms of those brand values and the ways that those brands communicate with her and involve her or actually don't involve her. And so I realized there was this big opportunity to rethink the beauty experience with a new beauty brand that kind of just throws all of the old ways of doing things away and thinks, well, what does a woman actually want today? Not just from a product perspective, but from an engagement perspective, from a distribution perspective, and from a values perspective. And that's really the inspiration behind launching Glossier in 2014, which is a direct-to-consumer digitally native brand.
And so you have the difficult task of continuing to run Into the Gloss, but now you are CEO also of a combined business, and Glossier is marketing and selling products, and the portfolio grows every week, every month. Do you think you could have built Glossier in reverse and started with the product line and then built a community and a blog around that?
So I think that's a great question. It's a question that we've been asked as content first, as a content-first company. That question, or kind of, perplexing content commerce dichotomy, is something that we've been asked a lot about, something that we think a lot about. I think anything's possible, so sure, we could be like many of the consumer brands who start blogs after they start, their business. But in our case, I think, my kind of response when people ask about the content commerce mix and launching blogs and having products is, I think Glossier, in a way, is still very much a content company. I consider our products themselves to be pieces of content. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in the next question, but so much of Glossier has been viral. So much of our success has been because our customers have purchased our products and then immediately started to take pictures of those products and upload them onto social media. So I really see Glossier almost like our products are crayons for our customers to create her own content, her own narrative, her own story. And Into the Gloss, yes, is a blog that still exists and is our content platform and serves to be our #1 microphone when it comes to engaging our customers.
Well, let's drill down on one of the things you said a little, because I think the brand is incredibly strong for a company that has really only been selling products for 2 years now, in the 3rd year. And you've developed a cult following, some that started through the Gloss, and to your point, people are using products like crayons, and you see them on Instagram, on Snapchat. And I think that is a lot of opportunity for you because you hear from them, but when you hear from people, you may hear good things, and you may hear bad things. And how do you think the brand has stayed authentic through all the noise and both the fans and potentially the critics?
Sure. So that's a great question. I think there's that saying that is as old as time, which is the customer is always right. And I think what's interesting in this age of the review, right, whether it's Blender reviews on Amazon or Sephora reviews of beauty products, the customer is not only always right, but she also has a microphone of, reaching 50, 500, 5,000, 500,000 of her nearest and dearest friends, and is able to talk about her preferences. So I think one of the things that Glossier focuses a lot on, and I think every brand, frankly, is focusing a lot on, is maintaining that authenticity and most importantly, that product quality, right? Ultimately, we're making and selling a consumer good that needs to work and that customers need to be happy with. So to answer your question about how we maintain that authenticity, we have a very transparent brand voice with our customer. We like to think that whenever we talk to her through captions on Instagram or through emails or even copy on the site, we like to think that we're writing emails to a friend or text messages to a friend. And for us, staying true to that voice has created a lot of loyalty and a lot of trust with our customer.
And that voice, that trust, I think you alluded to this earlier when you talked about, actually, I guess the irony in my mind was you had interviewed someone like Kim Kardashian, whose look is very robust, and perhaps not what you would describe as natural. But I'm trying to be delicate here. But on the other hand, Glossier stands for those very much the opposite thing. And how do you feel like those two have? Why has that struck a chord with the customer base?
Yeah. So I think what's interesting about the beauty industry and the history of beauty is this kind of trend. There's kind of a trend a decade, right? So if you look at, for example, let's just say like Max Factor in the 1940s. This was like one of the pioneers of makeup. It was all about this like old Hollywood glamour, and then in the 90s, things where Bobbi Brown came about, who's another billion-dollar global beauty brand today, and was all about more natural makeup. I think right now in 2017. If you look at something like YouTube, for example, I think beauty is like the #2 category on YouTube. So the reason that is because there are no more rules. There are actually barely any more experts because the consumer has all of these platforms and has the ability, again, to create her own narratives and share her opinion, so that there's myriad ways and looks that she can achieve. If you want to learn how to do Tyrannosaurus Rex, like makeup, you can find probably like hundreds of videos about that on the internet. So Glossier doesn't. While we have this kind of I guess. I don't know, there is a Glossier look, right? We say skin first, makeup second, and that's because we're all about this dewy skin, this like fresh, aesthetic, and really embracing your skin and who you are, your natural beauty. That's not to say that someone like Kim Kardashian can't use our priming moisturizer underneath her 13 other, makeup products. And in fact, she Instagrammed her Soothing Face Mist, last year it said it was one of her favorite products. So that's the great thing about beauty, is it's all about this recipe. And I think in the old days of beauty marketing, and even still today, I see so many beauty brands who refuse to show other brands in their Instagram feeds. That it's like they live in their own world of CoverGirl or something, and they're not acknowledging the customer behavior, which is actually they're mixing and matching, and everyone is creating their own recipe for how they want to look. And we at Glossier really encourage that, celebrate it, and actually are one of the only beauty brands that shows full top shelf pictures of entire girls' routines, because we're just really excited to activate that beauty customer. We see it as all tides rising, or whatever that phrase is. Like, you know, if you get women excited to share their routines and talk about beauty, then that's great for all of them, for everyone.